Okay, good morning, everyone. It is now 10 a.m. and welcome to the Cuyahoga County Districting Commission Organizational Meeting. It is Thursday, August 5th, and I will be calling the roll. Mr. Robert Frost, Mr. Douglas Cosell, Mr. Kenneth Lumpkin, Miss Sandra Morgan, and also, even though she is not present for the purposes of a quorum, I'm calling the roll for Miss Kathleen Murphy.
Here. Thank you.
At this time, I will be turning the next portion of our agenda over to Mr. Trevor McAleer and Mr. James Boyle.
Good morning, Districting Commission members. As Clerk Richardson said, my name is Trevor McAleer. I work for County Council. This is my colleague Jim Boyle. He works for County Council as well. Good morning. Before we get into introductions of everyone in the room, we were going to open the floor to any elected officials that were going to join today's meeting. I know Council President Jones intended on coming here at 10 o'clock to say a couple words, but at the last minute yesterday, there was a press conference scheduled at the Cleveland Indians Progressive Field, so he had to go over there at 10 o'clock. He might try to come back here if it ends early to catch the tail end of this meeting, but I know we have Councilman Schron who joined us by Zoom. I think some others might be watching on YouTube or may join us by Zoom. Councilman Schron, did you want to say a couple words or?
Just welcome and good luck, and you have the county's best interests at heart, and good luck.
I'm, again, Trevor McAleer, work for County Council. We put together this presentation that we're going to go over, just to give you an introductory background of what the Districting Commission did in 2011, your role this year, and if it's okay with everybody else in the room, we'll just go around to introduce ourselves to you and how we can be of assistance throughout this, which appears now to be a very condensed process.
Good morning again. My name is Jim Boyle. I have a longtime county employee, rapidly approaching retirement age, some would say. But I have the honor of working with the County Council for the last 2 years. In a prior existence, I actually worked on some of the prior stuff involving the original county redistricting, which occurred in 2011, and Mr. Lumpkin was present on that as well, and as a carryover on this body. Also here is our counsel from the County Council. Our lawyer, Brendan Doyle, is in the back here. And Joe Nani, the Chief of Staff for the County Council, will be present as well. As it relates to the staff, whatever needs you guys have, whatever you want, if you have any questions, obviously feel free to circle them back to us. I believe all of you I've spoken to, certainly in person, and you have both my email and cell phone if you have any questions or text. One caveat that I would give, as you can see, we're on video. These are public meetings. The comments are being recorded, and as a public body, all of the actions of the body, including the votes and the steps that are taken, will need to be taken place in public, so that the public has an opportunity to be heard. Also present behind me is Lou. She is a regular attendee of our meetings, as well as representatives from the League of Women Voters. League of Women Voters have played a role in, I would say, a lot of the county operations, including the previous districting commission, as well as charter amendments and things along those lines that the county has done over the last 10 or 11 years. Our clerk staff is here. They'll take down they obviously take all the notes and all the other stuff, and representatives from the law department is here, as well as Michelle Pomerantz from the Cuyahoga County Executive Commission's office.
And Ricky from IT.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ricky
helps us with all of this. Sorry. Michelle, did you want to say?
On behalf of County Executive, Michelle Pomerantz, Regional Collaboration Director, just want to thank you for your time today. The County Executive, as Jim and Trevor mentioned, is with the Council President over at the stadium today, but just wanted to say thank you for your time, and also to thank you for the staff and everyone else, including Ricky. I on helping make sure this happens, and anything that I can do in my office or any other things that can support from the executive, please let us know.
Jared, did you want any comments or anything? I just didn't know if you wanted to introduce yourself just quickly.
Sure. Jared Zabertoski. I'm with the Law Department. I'll be assisting the council with any legal questions, and I'll be working with council staff. So if there's anything you need, you please let us know, and we'll be happy to help. And thank you for serving on this commission.
And my name is Andrea Richardson. I am the clerk of council, and I have the pleasure of clerking your meeting today.
And I believe moving forward, it's going to be Andrea, Ashley, or Janine that will clerk the meetings, just facilitate. Once the body elects the chair and vice chair, you guys they'll help you get the agenda out and stuff like that. So those three are extremely helpful from an administrative perspective. So any questions throughout our presentation that we prepared to you, please stop us. We're working for you here right now with the presentation. So if you have questions as we're presenting, you don't need to save them to the end. Feel free to ask during the presentation. We can go in a different direction if you want, but we thought this would just be an initial kind of welcoming packet to you all to kind of understand what you've agreed to sign up for. Okay?
If just even one step back, I know when I had initially spoken to all 5 of the members, I'd referenced the fact that the resolution had not passed, just to be, it did pass. You guys have all been confirmed by county council at a vote on Tuesday, so congratulations.
And I just wanted to just make sure that I introduce, we have Janine Carter. She is the deputy clerk. She is over by the monitor. And then we have Ashley R. Johnson, assistant deputy clerk.
Janine, could we put the presentation up now, if possible? That this is also airing on YouTube, so other people can be watching this. Obviously, they can't interact with us, but it is airing on YouTube as well. So I think a couple people were going to just watch that way. If we can get started, this is the planned kind of agenda and discussion points for today. We already did the roll call and the introductions. Before we get started, did any of you have any comments before we get into the presentation, or we ready to start? Okay. So just briefly, kind of what your role is, what's a county districting commission? This is set up in the county charter. It's a 5-person panel. They are no more than 3 can be from the same political party. It has to be formed at the end of every census, which happens every 10 years. Under normal circumstances, you would have a little bit more time to do this, but we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. The only thing is that you can, no more than 3, again, from the same political party. You cannot be an elected official or an officer from a political party, which I know Council President Jones or both of us talked to all 5 members asking you those couple questions, and you guys said you were not those, so you met the requirements. As Jim mentioned, these meetings are open to the public. They are recorded. They are uploaded even after they air live onto the council webpage and YouTube. Every agenda, we have to put public comment on there, which will be after this presentation, so people can come in and provide public comment. And my next point here is very important, and I know this was in Council President Jones's talking points, planned talking points today before he had to get called a couple blocks from here. But the districting commission does make the final decision. It doesn't go to county council or the county executive for approval or veto power or legislation. They don't act. When the 5 members, the majority of the 5, if there are 3 votes for a final redistricting map, then the districting commission, which we can help you with, sends over a letter to the Board of Elections. So It doesn't take an act of any county officials. And then it becomes effective once the Board of Elections accepts the new boundaries, and it would take for next year's elections for the council members. So that is important. You guys are independent. Council or the executive cannot override any decision you make. And in the past, in 2011, Jim can attest to this, council members and the county executive did come in. They provide a public comment. You know, they can have conversations with you, but ultimately it's your guys' decision. Finally, as some of you may know, the state of Ohio is currently going through their own redistricting process. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but that is the reason why we are under the time crunch that we are under, because we have to be done by the time the state is done and completed with their work. And that's by the Ohio Constitution, September 1st, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So the next couple slides Jim's going to talk about.
So briefly, when the Cuyahoga County citizens voted to reform the county government from the previous commissioner form of government to an executive and county council form, they did that via the passage of the county charter. And the county charter is essentially the operating instructions for what the county has to do in their operations. And one of the aspects in there that is important, and obviously important for the five of you, is the redistricting. And one of the things that is important, I know we've touched on it, is the state is doing their redistricting as well. And you may ask, well, why are they on the same time frame? It's because it follows the federal census, and the federal census comes out every 10 years, and then in the years ending in 1 is when we get the data, and then we have to reform it. On this, in section 3.04 of the charter, more than anything else, I would turn your attention to paragraph 3, which establishes the principles in which the districting should focus. And the reality is what we really need is substantially equal districts. You want them to be compact, and they obviously must be contiguous. They have to touch, so they can't be islands. And that's really what we're looking for more than anything else as you go through this process. There are other aspects of this that I think are important as well, and that you want to respect traditional boundaries. And so sometimes that's school districts, sometimes that's communities, and you don't want to split up communities so that those communities won't have bifurcated or balkanized leadership for the county functions. Obviously, Cleveland being the county seat and substantially the largest community in Cuyahoga County will necessarily need to be split up. But on the state level, they don't necessarily follow that same edict, but we do. And so it's important that we try to respect those boundaries as best as we can. Again, and the goal of the redistricting and that the commission will do is to have, and again, it's right there in the charter, effective and efficient government. It also needs to be accountable, it needs to be responsive, and also be representative of the community as a whole. And those comments, at times you just read right through them and don't pay attention, but they do mean a great deal. I think the county structure has really recognized the need for efficiencies and the need for responsibility and responsiveness to the public. So also in the charter, it allows the county council to set up some additional criteria. So if the county council if there are things that the county council thinks during the redistricting process needs to be added in there, they can. And so what we have is a county code. The county code is our laws, for lack of a better description. And in there, in 2011, the county council enacted a piece of legislation to incorporate the bullet point. The lower bullet point is what it is. And what it really does is it tries to keep the numbers and consistent throughout. There are people that will recognize I'm District 11 or District 12. And sometimes when the districts become reconfigured, we don't want them to be renamed. And so the county council passed this in 2011. Again, I would never, and I hope that if I do that someone would correct me, I would never speak for council, but I'm unaware of any pending legislation from council to address any of the districting aspects. So that being said, I think we can feel a comfort to operate with what's in front of you. Sure. Okay, so again, and this may be a little bit redundant for Mr. Lumpkin, but in 2011, we did go through the first districting process where we changed the borders. And it may seem odd that in 2010, when the new government came in, or was elected, I should say, the new government actually came in 2011, to have a redistricting so quickly. But it was important because it needs to set the precedent. And I think, again, and I apologize, Mr. Lumpkin, but you'll see in the documents in front of you that there was quite a bit of redistricting that needed to occur. And I turned back to 2011 there were some housing changes and some population shifts that were pretty significant during that preceding time. And I think that largely led the need to adjust the districts. The other thing that happened, the federal census in 2010, again, I'm not going to be political in this aspect, but they finished their census. The federal census was finished earlier. And that being said, it allowed the districting commission to get their work started sooner. We still don't have the finalized or even a preliminary data from the federal census, but we do anticipate it. I know Trevor will talk about that a little later. But what happened in 2011, you'll see it there on the sheet, we did hire an independent consulting firm to assist, and I think that was very helpful to the process. One of the things that I've learned in my 30-some-odd years with the government and/or political process is that the adjustments that have been made in those times that my operative years have been substantial, and so the ability to use computerized data sets to adjust and look at what moving cities or precincts or wards into a different district, what the population would look like, you can be literally done at a fingertip, and it was not always like that. But the consultant was greatly helpful to the group, I feel. Ken may disagree, but I thought it was very helpful in leading the discussion and also the technological advances. But you'll also see what we did, the appointments were done in June, and now we're into August, so you can see the timeline is certainly more compact. We did do, it seemed like it was more than 9, but it looks like there were 9 meetings, and they reviewed 8 separate potential districting plans. As always, they would receive public input and public comment before they made their ultimate selection in September 2011. And if I can take one step back, and I apologize, I probably should have done this at the beginning. In front of all of you is a packet that I put together, and it's what's in there is just, if I may, Trevor. So A is all 5 of you, just your basic aspect and your background information.
Contact information.
Contact information as well. 2 will be just the county council members and what districts they serve. 3 is some of the information that's in front of you. What I'd say is kind of the legal parameters that you're going to look at, the county charter, as well as the county code that I just mentioned, as well as the state constitutional amendment or provision that also dictates that. And 4, again, this is a little background, is what happened in 2011, the background of what the commission does. And then 5, and I'm jumping, the last thing in here is as Trevor had mentioned, is the finality of it. That's the actual concluding aspect of what the commission issued to the Board of Election. And you'll note again that there is no county council nor any county executive input in that. It just goes, when you guys make your decision, it goes right off to the Board of Elections, and that's what's in there. And I apologize, I should have done that at the outset.
Okay, so quickly, we're going to go over some of the guidelines that the Districting Commission in 2011 gave to the consultant to come up with the 8 plans that Jim mentioned. And we'll talk about what that means for this commission for this year. So the 2011 District Commission said, let's have balanced district populations, right? That goes in line with what the charter says. And at that point, of course, 11 county council districts, and they set the margin at plus minus 5%. with the average district population of 116,374. And we got a slide that we're going to quickly go over just to show you the before and after from 2011. To be consistent with the federal law, right, the county council district should neither pack nor dilute the African American residents. 4 of the 11 council districts at that time, and then after the work of the districting commission, had between 3/5 and 2/3 African American population. Those are districts 7 through 10. Also consistent with federal law, the council districts should neither pack nor dilute Hispanic residents. And then as the results of the 2011 districting, which was consistent beforehand, the Hispanic population resided, the majority of the Hispanic population within the county resided in one council district. The goal was to minimize the amount of change from the 2011 districting commission process. The final adopted plan by the districting commission then resulted in 10.2% of the residents changing district. So I think a pretty good percentage considering it was the first one under the new form of government. Again, as Jim mentioned, do not split up any communities outside of the city of Cleveland. You know, we don't need to break up Woodmere and stuff. That was the, the discussion around the 2011 districting commission. And then if possible, their goal was to keep current council members that live in the district within that same district. So again, that wasn't a final determination by the district commission, but that was a guiding principle. So they said if it was possible, they would do that. And ultimately what they adopted did do that. So the next couple of slides we're quickly going to go over just to show you what changed in 2011. So the 10.2% population change, we don't need to list every single one there or go over every single one, but the biggest change were a couple wards within the city of Cleveland, right? In order to increase some of the population in certain districts and decrease the population in other districts. So if there's no questions on that, we just wanted to show you what changed in 2011. Here's a map of the county at the time the new charter was voted in by the voters of Cuyahoga County. This is what the districts looked like before redistricting. I wish we had a little clearer map, but this is the best one we could dig up from the Board of Elections file. So this is what the county looked like prior to the work of 2011. And then, as you can see, this is what it looked like after redistricting. So a couple cities did change districts. So I don't think it's a significant change when you see it from a visual perspective on the map, but that's just what it looks like from a color-coded district map. As we mentioned, the plus minus 5% was the goal of the districting commission in 2011. And this is what it was before the redistricting. You can see some districts had significant higher population than the average, which was the 116,000. Some of them had significant population below that threshold. And then you can see the population after redistricting, and all of them, of course, fell within the 5% threshold that the districting commission set up. So again, the District 1, I think, probably had the highest population at the time of when the charter went into effect. And then you can see after the work, it leveled out pretty equal population across the board in 2011. So if we can, let's get into 2021 now, if there's no questions about the 2011 district process. Both Jim and I will be talking about a couple points on this slide. So I think we might have mentioned this through an email or verbal conversations, but the council did issue an RFQ for a redistricting consultant to assist you in your work. The bids are due tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So we sent it out to, I think, about 18 vendors, potential vendors, and it's also publicly posted on the county's webpage. And I think as of this morning, we haven't received a bid yet, but usually that's not uncommon. They'll probably all come in later today, tomorrow, so.
We have heard from several vendors with questions, and so I don't want the body or any of the public to think that there is no interest in doing this. I do expect that there will be. We won't know till 4 o'clock tomorrow.
And when we issued the RFQ, and it was around the time the council president was talking to all of you, we thought we had 120 days. We were under the impression we had 120 days. So we did notify the 18 or so vendors that this was sent to directly and update it on our county page that we are under a much tighter timeline, so that when they are submitting their proposals, they know that we are probably under a much more strict timeline than we originally thought. What will happen then, council will make a recommendation for an award for the consultant to our county board of control. And our goal right now is to have a selection to the county's board of control by August 16th, which is the same day that the federal government is supposed to release the census data. I think we're going to be able to review the proposals, have a recommendation to council with an ultimate recommendation to the board of control early next week, hopefully get the terms of a contract agreed upon with the selected vendor, and have the board of control approve it by August 16th. So Jim, do you want to talk about our new timeline that we're under now?
Yeah, so again, I would turn your attention to tab 3 and what I would label as kind of our legal guidelines of what we have to look through. And the county charter in section 3.042, the very last sentence, indicates that the apportionment shall be completed by the same date as the apportionment for the Ohio General Assembly and shall be effective for the first regular county election thereafter. Those of us in the legal field recognize the usage of the word shall rather than may, indicating the mandate that necessarily follows that. Obviously, this mandate incorporates the need to have the federal census data in front of us to make those decisions. I do anticipate that we will have that. Obviously, Ohio is not the only state that will need to do these things, and other governmental agencies will have to do this as well, Summit County being an example as well. And then on, I think the last one on paragraph, in that same section or that same tab, and I did highlight it, and it's from the Ohio Constitution. It indicates the commission, this is the Ohio, shall adopt a final General Assembly district plan not later than the first day of September of a year ending in the numeral 1, and that's us. That's 1, and that's September. And you will note that the state constitution, which is essentially their charter, our charter, has a set date, September 1. That's when it has to be done. Our charter didn't incorporate a date set, but rather just kind of a timeline to utilize. But by tying it in our charter to the state's mandate, that September 1 date is something that we have to work with. And that is, I think, it's a challenge, but it's certainly one that I know that we can work with.
And then finally, after the 2 or so weeks that the district commission has to work with, again, we would recommend the board chair would send over a letter to the Board of Elections once you formally vote on any changes to districts.
And you'll see that the one from 2011 is on tab 5. That's the formality of the conclusion of the process.
Our last slide for today's presentation are a couple things that we are proposing as kind of questions or topics for your consideration. Of do you select a chair and vice chair at today's meeting? Do you want to wait for another meeting because one of the members could not be in person today because of the short notice, unfortunately, that we gave? Couple things in terms of does the district and commission want to have similar criteria as 2011 guidelines for the consultant? We want to schedule a next meeting today. Do you guys want to schedule kind of potentially pick days that you're willing to meet. So these were just kind of more talking points that we were recommending for you as discussion items that if you have any questions or anything that we can help with, that we would probably recommend the commission considers today.
Yeah, and if I can just briefly comment on that, excuse me. We, the staff that's involved in here, we work for the five of you. Whatever you want to do, if your answer is, and I would like to personally thank Ms. Murphy for her consideration. I mean, it was, you know, as a new member, I went around with her, and she was very gracious to allow to meet by Zoom. But however the five of you want to do, if your answer is, look, we just sat here, we don't want to pick a chair, we want to set meetings, that's fine too. And I more than anything else, we just wanted to get people in the room, organize, meet each other, get information in front of you so that you can decide how you want to move forward. But it's up to the five of you.
You go ahead.
Oh, and I would add, I'm sorry, there's the microphones, you got to hit
Yeah.
the green button so that they can hear you. And again, remember that everything, this microphone serves the recording as well.
That's just fine. This is Sandra Morgan speaking, and I say to the 1, 2, 3, 4 questions you have here, yes, 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 and yes. I think that Ms. Murphy is in the room and can hear us, and so I think that her input would be valuable. But I think we should go ahead and decide a chair and a co-chair. I also think that we should answer these other questions, including taking a look at our calendars now and setting a time for a meeting, just because the time frame is so condensed that I think we may as well go ahead and get that onto our calendars right away.
And if I may respond, if we put on the calendars now, we can always change it, right? It's not set in stone, but from a clerk staff and a staff position with the law department and Michelle's schedule, it would be nice. I mean, but, you know, again, it's your guys' call, but that way we can just plan, we can get the notices out to the public. But again, that is up to the commission as a whole.
Yeah, my personal thought is there's no time like the present, and especially since we're all here.
If the commission was going to consider doing potentially 2 meetings a week, at least 2 meetings a week, you know, for a 3-week span, the only probably recommendation that I think we would give is spread those days out a little bit in case the consultant needs to make the changes that you guys asked for. Give the person a day or two to do the work. I mean, you know, again, but if you say, no, I want Mondays and Tuesdays, then we'll make it work. I'm sure the vendor will make it work as well, but our only recommendation would probably try to spread those out by a couple days, just to give really the selected consultant some time to do the work that you guys request of them.
And one other piece on that is important. These are public meetings, and so that we have to have agenda, we have to have meeting minutes, et cetera, and so they have to be posted and approved by the body, and so there is a little lag time. Yes, we can work with them. If you say you want to meet at 9 a.m. on Thursday and then 4 p.m. on Thursday, we'll do it. But again, it's just something that I think is from a procedural and operational side, something that I would hope would be considered as well.
Yeah, question. The assumption is that we will, in order to meet the guidelines and the timelines, we will be meeting at a minimum of 2 times a week. At a minimum.
That would, again, I don't want to make any presumptions, but I would agree with your assessment in terms of the times, but without knowing what data we're looking at, it's hard for me to say that's a given, but yes, I would tend to agree with that.
So that may factor into the amount of time that a person will have available to do this, and that also impacts the decision of a vice chair and a chair to see whether or not those individuals have the time to commit to 2 days a week. So while we may try and expedite this today, I think it's imperative that we do give some consideration that twice a week, based upon the 2011, there was a lot of time that was committed to this, and the chair is going to be required to commit a lot of time to this. So, yeah, if you guys want to move quickly on this, fine with me. I mean, I have no problems with it. Just want to make sure you have that in mind, that this timeline sort of dictates the amount of time that we're going to put into this.
From a timing perspective, as Jim said, you guys want to meet at 7:30, or if you want to meet at 6 o'clock at night. I mean, we, will, from a staffing perspective, we will make it work. I think the commission in 2011, I think they were meeting at 3 o'clock, but they also had a ton more time, so.
Sure. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Lumpkin, for your comments. Much appreciated, and we will be leaning heavily on you because you have experience on this process. However, I still think that we should at least consider a meeting schedule, just because it allows us all. It's delaying the inevitable, one, and number two, it allows us to, all of us work to decide, when we're available. I think that we can at least create a skeletal schedule now.
I mean, that's within the bodies. I mean, if that's something you want to do, and however you want to do it. I would like, if Ms. Murphy would like to comment. I mean, she can't vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, but I would concur with the comments by Ms. Morgan as well. I think due to our time constraints that it is important for us to put out a little skeleton and get some commitments and move forward with things that we can do right now that'll help us make our deadline and have this process be as smooth as possible. So I am totally agreeable with that. Thank you.
If I might, as Ms. Morgan rightly said, we will lean a good bit on the experience of Mr. Lumpkin. And if I may be so bold, if he's willing to be nominated, I would be willing to nominate him to be our chair. But as he said, that's going to require a lot of time, and no one knows better, Ken, than you, what that commitment will be. And so I don't flat out nominate you. I ask if you're willing to be nominated as the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Yeah, and again, when I came in here, I had every intention of providing whatever service I could provide to the group. But now, again, because of some of the other things I'm involved in out here, I don't want to take on a situation where I may or may not be able to commit to the time. I will do whatever I can for the group, because I realize it's the imperative and the time involved in this, and we have to get this together. But I'm hesitant for only one reason, is it because I have other obligations at this time, and again, taking on this right now, 2-3 days a week, it might be problematic for me, even though it would be an honor to serve. But I appreciate that, but again, it would be problematic for me to serve as the chair at this point.
Thank you. That being said, how about you, Rob?
Right back at you.
We do give free parking.
Yeah.
And there's big perks being on this.
That's big.
We'll provide water at the next one, and maybe even coffee.
Hooray.
Well, there you go.
Maybe snack.
Well,
Whoa,
let's
whoa, whoa,
not
whoa, whoa,
go
whoa,
too
whoa.
far.
It's a
Snacks.
government.
I can bring snacks. How's that? How about this? Rob, if you will serve as chair, I will be your wingman.
Well, maybe we should hear
Person.
from our other members. I don't really have an objection to serving in
Murphy?
whatever capacity we're needed here, but I would like input from all the members. And Doug, we haven't heard from you yet.
No,
on
you
that.
have not.
Yeah.
I'm just listening because this is all new to me. So my first thought is, thank you for not nominating me. The second is, as far as all these suggestions, I see no reason why we have to reinvent the wheel. I'm all for everything that was done in 2011. I don't know where else we would get the data that we would need if we didn't have a vendor providing that for us. So, Mr. Lumpkin, obviously well-respected, well-known, and quite competent. Maybe be a vice chair, or as a chair. You know, that's what the vice chair does, but turns in when you aren't available to run the meeting or be available. So I really don't know that much, but I'm supporting who's ever in the running.
And Ms. Murphy, I mean, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I do support Rob, Mr. Frost, and Ms. Morgan. I see they seem to be willing, and I think they understand a lot and have a lot of background with this process. And I do not. So,
Okay, there's two of us.
I support that.
Okay, do we want to call for a vote for, I mean, do you want to go ahead, clerk? I apologize.
So again, I'm just going to formalize this. Please state your name for the record and your nomination. At this time, Ms. Sandra Morgan is nominating, she would like to nominate Mr. Robert Frost as chair. Mr. Frost, do you consent to this nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Frost has been nominated for the position of chair. Are there any further nominations? At this time, for chair, there is none. May I have a second motion to nominate Mr. Frost as the new chair? Seconded by Ms. Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Right. The motion carries and the nomination is closed because there was just one nomination for that position. Now we will do this again for the nomination of vice chair. Please state your name for the record and your nomination, Mr. Frost.
Nominate Sandra Morgan.
Ms. Morgan, do you consent to the nomination? I do. Okay. Ms. Morgan has been nominated for the position of vice chair. Are there any further nominations at this time? Seeing none, may I have a motion for the a second motion for the nomination to for Ms. Morgan as vice chair? Thank you. Could you state your name? Thank you, Mr. Kazel. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries, and the new vice chair is Ms. Sandra Morgan. Therefore, we don't need a roll call because there was a...
So in terms of criteria, I don't, in my opinion, Jim, chime in here, I don't think the board needs to approve or object to any of the criteria unless you can add something. I think at this point, because we do not have a vendor on board yet, I would wait to potentially, at least if there's no objections, we would give this to the vendor as some guiding principles. And then if we want to add something to your agenda, if you guys want to add something at a future agenda, we can. But I just don't think an official action would need to happen right now from you, as long as there's really no objection to the criteria.
No. No objection.
I agree with that entirely.
Rob, do you want to kind of take over for a meeting schedule since you're now the chair? I don't want to overstep here.
Well, sure. I mean, slightly, I want your assistance continuing to run the meeting. At the next meeting, maybe we can set up accordingly. But thank you, Trevor. Yeah, first of all, to that last part, I fully support, as our vice chair said previously, I agree with, and as you just summarized, as at least a starting point, using the same criteria from 2011. If there are factors that have changed, if there's new input or new things to consider, then fine. But it's wonderful to have that guidance. In terms of schedule, so we were going to look to meet perhaps on the 16th or about the 16th?
So the data, according to the federal government, they have said they will release it by the 16th.
Right.
That means it could come right when you guys walk out of the room today.
It may have already come.
I doubt it. I know Michelle, I don't know if you have anything to add. Michelle's was heavily involved in the census on behalf of the county executive and the county council. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
Nope. You've covered it.
It's a guessing. I mean, we're hoping sooner to some degree, but if I had to guess, I would probably say it's going to be the 16th when they say by the 16th.
So perhaps we could look at that Thursday of that week, which is 2 weeks from today, would be August 19th. Might be the first day we could productively take up. Does anyone think we need to meet sooner than that, given this time frame we've seen? That I wouldn't think.
If I can add, so when we did notify the 18 or so vendors that we sent the original RFQ to, one vendor replied all, which was fine, you know, they can do that, and said they thought they would need about 3 to 4 days once they received the data.
Right.
So that would fall in line, and at the very starting point at least, it would just be getting the district commission back together, so.
Right. Well, and on that point, again, and I don't want to assume anything, but one of the luxuries of being in a technological environment like we are now is that there are like preliminary, I mean, like if you get on Wikipedia, for example, you can see the 2009 estimated population of Strongsville. Now, by no means does that mean that that's what it's going to be, but they are close. And so, I mean, I think that some of these vendors have already looked at what they would label as 2019 estimates and are viewing that the population shifts that Mr. Lumpkin and his group dealt with last cycle will be less pronounced than they are in this cycle. And now again, that we say that not knowing what the finality of those numbers will be, but I think there's an expectation from the vendor side at least that the computerization in the work itself will be more streamlined, which is positive.
I think Michelle had something.
Yes, just back to the census question. I've been in touch with a couple folks at the Census Bureau. They still say the 16th is the date. Because the census has been so topsy-turvy, I would like to think that that date is strong and it's going to be on that date before midnight on the 16th. But it's been a little roller coaster this time with the census. So if we get something early, I think it would be great, but I would not anticipate.
And the feds have been pretty, at least in my opinion, been pretty, the federal agencies have been pretty adamant that that's the day that everyone, and again, as I mentioned, it's not just Ohio, it's not just Cuyahoga County, it's, you know, every other entity that has to redistrict. So that 16th is the day, so.
Can you tell me about the public comment process? How is that going to play out with this? In terms of how we're setting this up, and structuring this for the meetings, for the data, for the presentation of the data? Where does the public comment process incorporate?
Well, I'll start off a little bit on that, and I think some of the folks can add in. Every public meeting, which this is one of them, will have an opportunity for public comment. And so one of the things that we had done in the past was to take the findings, for example, on the road, to seek the public's input in a non-Cuyahoga County Administration building. And you remember, I mean, we went, I don't remember where the body, but they went out to present to other entities so that people in Westlake or Berea or in Cleveland Heights could hear the finding. I don't remember where exactly we went at that time, but those are opportunities, and I would hope and expect that those are some things that we would be able to do. I do recognize, Mr. Lumpkin, again, we're on a tighter schedule, so that it'll be harder to do that, but I do anticipate, in looking at the criteria that are incorporated into our county charter, I mean, yeah, I think the public input will be something that we're going to have to actively solicit. Mm-hmm. When I say we, I apologize, it's you.
As I recall, that was one of the things that I think some of the vendors struggled with. They didn't struggle with it because they were able to overcome it, but they were not working within these tight contact guidelines then. So we have to be prepared for that.
Absolutely, and I think that I do think that the vendors are aware of that, and we've reached out to them so that they're aware of what the timeline is.
So if I can add, we've had 3 vendors specifically have insurance questions. Our law department requires so much insurance, be just part of the contractual obligations of the vendor. All 3 in their questions about the insurance, surprisingly, all 3 brought up that they are working with it kind of, I would say, sub-vendors or whatever, that they are submitting a communications outreach part, which is required as part of the RFQ. But it was just interesting. All 3 on their own, brought that up when they were asking us about insurance requirements.
So, and
So that it's on their radar.
yeah, and I think it's consistent with the prior work that was done. I mean,
Right.
there isn't, that question, Mr. Lumpkin, is an anticipation of, I think, the county operations as well as the vendors that are participating. And quite frankly, I'm glad to hear that it's a comment from at least the body to say, yeah, that's something that needs at least addressed.
And that's the message that we will send out to the public, that we were very much interested in the public comment.
Right.
And how the public feels about this. Again, but we're working on tight constraints.
Right.
It actually raises a point, question I had asked, and even looking at the 19th, is whether there's any purpose to have a meeting before the 19th, which on the data end, there probably isn't. If we wanted to have a meeting just to invite the public at the beginning of the process, to say, give us your thoughts. So many times I've heard from members of the public, they feel they're only consulted after it really looks like all the decisions have been made. And so if our fellow members would want to have a meeting sooner than the 19th that is expressly for the purpose of taking any input as we start the process, I'm very open to that because, Ken, yeah, I fully agree with you. It is so important. And I'll even just say, I mean, this packet right here, including our contact information, I presume is a public record.
Yeah, but I just, the law department can chime in. We would redact certain information that should not be in the
And
public.
that's fine, but, I'd like our contact.
Home address.
Yeah,
as part of
yeah.
the public agenda.
Sorry, Jared.
I imagine our contact information will be there, and there will not only be a formal process, but any member of the public should feel welcome, at least for me as one member, to give me any input you'd like me to consider as a member of this commission, including if there's anyone out there who's good with data and map drawing software who has a map they'd like us to consider. This is I think we've stated, at least a majority of us, and probably all of us, but I can't assume, but we're going to go by, at least as a starting point, the criteria that was used the last time. So you may not have a radically different map like we see sometimes in other map drawing processes. That being said, if someone has ideas of ways we need to be looking at this, I'm very open to this commission hearing those.
I mean, if these Monday and Thursday, right? So Thursday the 19th, right? So the vendor. If possible, I don't know if the 16th.
That works?
Yeah, Monday the 16th is fine. What, during the mornings, you're looking at initially?
For Monday the 16th, so I would probably any time after 12. If that's possible, because usually Board of Control is done by then. So, but again, if you say no, I want to do it at 10, the vendor will know that they were selected. They just weren't ultimately approved by the Board of Control yet. But if you say 10, we'll make it work at 10.
Absolutely.
Afternoon is fine by me.
That's not a good day for me in the afternoon, unless we're late in the afternoon, like 4.
Fine by me.
I've got I could probably move that. I have a 4 o'clock right now. Should we look at, I do like the idea of Mondays and Thursdays, but do we want to look at Tuesday the 17th instead of Monday the 16th, if people's schedules are better?
That works better for me.
I'm wide open that afternoon. We could do, say, 3 p.m.
AM works for me on Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, if I can interrupt for one, Ms. Murphy, I apologize because she's on.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that would work for me as well on the 17th or the 16th, so I'm flexible. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
At what time?
3 p.m.?
3 p.m., all right.
That's the 17th.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can summarize, if that is okay with you?
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, August 17th at 3 o'clock. The intent of that will basically be for public input. And I'm sure by then someone who loves maps and stuff will probably already be playing with numbers if it was released on the 16th. But, so that'll be a public forum. And then I think still for Thursday, August 19th, I just don't believe a time was set yet from you all.
Does 3 p.m. work for all on the 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll reach out to the, for the 17th as well, in every meeting, but we'll reach out to the League of Women Voters as well, to see if they can, would you like to comment? Is that okay, Mr. Blair?
Here, do you want to do public?
Just clarification, Tuesday is
Here.
3 PM?
Here, come, yeah, so, because, again, it's public, so.
Can you do mornings on Thursday?
You know, the league loves playing with maps, and we also love transparency and public comment. So I just want to make sure I have the time straight.
Yep, Tuesday, August 17th at 3 o'clock. And then Thursday, August 19th at 3 o'clock.
Okay, so we can presume 3 o'clock is going to be our new standard time,
I like
maybe?
it.
I do too.
See,
And I
if
would,
we're getting other
Yeah.
odds. Yeah.
I would
I
ask
agree.
the commission's, you know, support on this because I'll be teaching on Thursday mornings at 10, so that would be a tough time for me to be here.
We have a lot of members. I'm sure we will be able to get somebody here. Thank
We're
you.
always here, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And if we want to look in, how about that Monday, the 23rd of the following week? Again, at 3 p.m.? And Kathy, does that work for you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Thank you.
Now, that Thursday, the 26th, I do have something that may or may not present a conflict, but let's go ahead and keep a fairly standard. Why don't we go with that Thursday, the 26th? If I have to miss one, that's why we elected a vice chair, right, Sandra?
Correct.
But I'm pretty confident
Okay.
I can move my commitment. So I will be working on that today to clear that.
Can I ask, in the year 2011, when this was done, how long did the meetings last?
Can give you, I mean, it depended, but the presentations, and again, Mr. Lumpkin can chime in, they were not, I don't think any of them were what I would label as marathon sessions, but they did, they did take some time. I mean, I don't think it's wrong
The
to.
longest one we probably was about an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, it wasn't for that, but this is an average of an hour,
Right.
hour, a little over an hour.
Because personally, as long as we have time constraints, personally, I'd be open to a marathon meeting or two. You know, it might be easier for our schedules in some ways, just to find that one day where we can devote 5 or 6 hours, or maybe I'm gonna shoot
Father,
myself.
we might need that at some point. I mean, I think, you know, it really is, what is the data gonna?
Right.
What, the data's the driving force here, for the most part.
Yeah, I think you need to leave that option open,
Right, I agree.
because of the amount of
Yeah.
data that's gonna all of a sudden come at you.
Right.
You know, and, the vendors, so you need to leave that out.
Right, I agree with that, and that, I believe this will be an opportune time for Ms. Morgan's snack volunteering to factor.
Yes.
Just making sure you knew that.
Well, I will, and I'm sure to the extent we all can, let's keep our later afternoons, early evenings on these days we're setting. So that if we start at 3 and we're done at 4, that's great. If we turn out to need to be working until 6 p.m., we can do that because, I mean, the next date I'm looking at is the 30th, Monday the 30th. And if we do have to end up being done by the 1st, that may be our last meeting, other than.
Can we, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, can we schedule that at 3 o'clock on the 30th as well?
Yeah.
Or is the commission okay with that?
Yeah,
That's
I
what
would
I'm
prefer
looking at.
just holding that. I mean, if it turns out you don't need it, great, but if you do, it's at least in your books.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't think it makes sense sending any dates beyond September 1st
Right.
until we know that we even have that additional time to do the work. Right now, I guess we're considering that's our deadline to be our final meeting.
We were internally talking about this amongst the council staff, and that was was going to be our recommended internal deadline for you. That way, then we can help you, if needed, to draft the letter, put the packet together, and make sure we get it to the Board of Elections by the 1st.
Right.
And I think the 30th would be that date, hopefully, that the commission could vote on any districting changes.
Wonderful.
So, Mr. Chair, can we just read into the record one more time the meetings, just to make sure everyone is on the same page, and Andrea has those as well, if that's okay?
Sure. We're going to meet next on Tuesday, August 17th, right here for each meeting. We have this room.
Yes, I think perhaps it will either be here or the room right next to us, the chambers. I think for at least the 17th, if that is going to be our public forum, we probably would recommend we go into the bigger room.
So we're going to meet here at the County Administration Building, 4th floor, presumably in the room next door at 3 p.m. We'll meet again here on the 4th floor of the County Administration Building at 3 p.m. on August 19th. Again at 3 p.m. on Monday, August 23rd. Fourth time, well, actually 5th if you count today. Fifth time at 3 p.m. on Thursday, August 26th, again here on the 4th floor. And what will tentatively at least, and perhaps permanently be our final meeting would be again here at the County Admin Building, 4th floor, 3 p.m. on Monday, August 30th.
Andrea, you got what you need?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I know I touched upon this in the introduction remarks, and I don't know if he still wanted to say a couple words, but the council president is back. I didn't know if he could maybe sit here for a second.
We would like for him to do so.
Well, first, thank you all for serving. I'll share with you, when we set this meeting, I had planned to be here with you throughout the entirety, but we had an emergency announcement of our Cleveland Indians. So we have negotiated a deal, and the Indians will be with us, and for the next 15 years, they won't be the guardians in some other city. So they'll be right here. So I had to be there for that time, but I'm glad I was able to make it back. I'll share with you the process. My 11 colleagues, they recommended names to me. And of those names, many names, I selected the 5 of you, and Kathy as well. Thank you for being here with us on Zoom. But I recommended those 5 names. And as you know, I had an opportunity to speak with each of you individually. I was very pleased and comfortable with the conversations I had with each of you. And as I shared with you, I was going to take your names back to my colleagues. And with that, with their support, you saw the vote that they supported you all, the majority support for you to be here today. So again, I thank you for that. Our time is condensed, a little condensed time, but we're up to the challenge. We're up to it. You are an independent body, and we expect you to act as so. If you need any support, I'm here to provide the resources for you to be able to fulfill your duties. So again, I just thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your confidence in us.
Most definitely. All right, and congratulations to you, Rob, as our president, and Sandra as our vice president. You will both serve ably. All right, thank you all. All right.
Trevor or Jim, did you have any other business you needed us to accomplish?
We need to go down the agenda.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
At this time, the next item number 4, is public comment. We have Lou.
Good morning. I'm here just to demonstrate how public comments probably would go. Myself and lots of people's residents in the county, we may come up here asking our questions. Some of them could be silly, some of them could be really important. And thank you for all of you being here to carry this heavy duty job for us. So I wish if you see our questions are valuable as your own, please incorporate them into our problem solving so we can have a way better, fair, equitable districting maps for our future voting needs. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Susan Mernan with the League of Women Voters, and thank you all so very much. I'm truly excited about this. And what I really have is a question. Will it be possible for us to access the preliminary numbers before the census comes out, for those of us who like to play with maps? Okay. How could we do that?
If I may, Mr. Chair? Sure. So currently on the census website, 2019 data estimates are currently on there.
Thank you.
If you go to the 2020 section on the census, you can actually sign up to get an email and maybe a text alert when it is uploaded to the website. That's all they do. They put it on the website. So I did that. I know many of other people in this room did that. The only data that you could really play with right now would be the 2019 estimate.
Okay. Thank you very much.
At this time, is there any miscellaneous business? Hearing,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I know Councilman Strawn's back on. I didn't know if he had any further comments or Commission Member Murphy had any further comments. I just didn't want to, I want to make sure they could hear us and chime in if they had anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never left. I just went mute and took my picture off so you need my smiling face. But thank you, everybody, for volunteering and for stepping forward and taking on this awesome responsibility. You represent the county for the next 10 years with your decisions. So thank you very much and good luck and God bless.
And I would just like to thank you for accommodating me on the Zoom meeting today. I look forward to meeting you all in person and working with you all. Thank you.
But in terms of miscellaneous business, then I do want to, that's a perfect segue. Jim Boyle already said it earlier, but Kathy, I want to thank you for being willing and gracious to say, all right, if you've got a quorum, go ahead, even though I can't be there. This was very short notice. We all understand why, and I think it's very fortunate we've been able to at least get this organizational function done today.
Thank you. I was happy to accommodate. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, one more comment. I don't know if the members, everyone got to meet Council's Chief of Staff, Joe Nani. He was with the Council President at Progressive Field, so you'll see his face at these meetings quite a bit too, besides the people over here.
if there's no other miscellaneous business at this time, we can adjourn. It is now 11:08 a.m.